Ladies and gentlemen, they thought you were just another chapter in their book, didn't they? Another name to scribble on the pages of their life story, a footnote to be forgotten. But what they failed to see was that you were not a chapter. You were the turning point. You were the storm they never saw coming. You were the lesson they needed but refused to acknowledge. And in the end, you succeeded. You fulfilled your purpose, and God worked through you to make sure they learned the lesson they desperately needed to learn, even if they never realized it. They underestimated you. They treated you as though you were disposable, a temporary presence in their life, just another passing moment that would fade into nothingness. But they couldn't have been more wrong. You were more than they could ever understand. You were a force that had been set into motion by something greater than them, something that transcended their shallow perceptions of power control and self-righteousness. They thought they could break you. They thought they could manipulate you, mold you into something weak and pliable, something they could control. But they didn't know that the very thing they tried to crush would rise stronger than ever before. They saw you as insignificant, a small player in their game of life, and in their arrogance, they never realized that the entire game was being played by forces far beyond their comprehension. And while they tried to manipulate the pieces, they failed to see that you were the very catalyst that would change everything. You were the one they never saw coming. You were the storm that would sweep away their illusions and expose the cracks in their carefully constructed facades. You were not just another character in their story. You were the one who would reveal the truth behind the lies they so desperately clung to. And God worked through you to teach them the lesson they were too blind to learn on their own. You may never know the full extent of the impact you had on them, but let me tell you this. You have succeeded. You have fulfilled your purpose, and you have proven that even in the darkest of moments, God's plan will prevail. They thought they were in control. They thought they had power. But in the end, it was you who held the key to their awakening. You were the lesson they needed to face the truth about themselves, about their actions, and about the consequences of their arrogance. Through you, they were forced to confront their own demons, their own shortcomings, their own inability to see beyond their own selfish desires. They were forced to reckon with the reality that their actions had consequences, that their manipulation and deceit would not go unnoticed, that the lies they told would eventually catch up with them. They never saw it coming, but you were the one who made them face the truth. You were the one who showed them that their actions have weight and that no one escapes the consequences of their choices. You see, sometimes we are placed in people's lives not to be their savior, but to be the mirror that reflects their flaws, their weaknesses, and their hypocrisy. You weren't there to fix them. You weren't there to make them feel better. You were there to show them who they really are and who they could become if only they would take responsibility for their actions. It wasn't your job to carry the weight of their mistakes, but it was your job to make them confront the truth about themselves. And in doing so, you succeeded. You became the vessel through which God's lesson was delivered. They thought they could ignore you. They thought they could dismiss you. They thought they could walk all over you. But they couldn't have been more wrong, because you weren't a passive bystander in their story. You were an active participant in the unfolding of a greater plan. You were the wake-up call they didn't want to hear, but desperately needed to hear. You were the test that revealed their true character, the trial that exposed their deepest fears and insecurities. And in the end, you succeeded in making them see the truth, no matter how painful it was. God worked through you, not because you were perfect, not because you were the most qualified or the most equipped, but because you were willing to be the instrument of change, even in the face of adversity. You didn't back down when the world tried to crush you. You didn't run when they tried to break you. You stood tall, and you let God's power flow through you to fulfill the purpose that was set before you. And in doing so, you became the very thing that they needed the lesson. They refused to learn the truth they refuse to face. It's easy to get lost in the noise of the world, to get caught up in the expectations of others, to believe that we are defined by the opinions and judgments of those around us. But the truth is that we are defined by something far greater than the temporary perceptions of the people in our lives. You were not defined by their judgments. You were defined by the divine purpose that was set within you, the purpose that would ultimately bring them to their knees and force them to reckon with the reality they had spent their lives avoiding. You may never see the full impact of what you've done. You may never receive the recognition you deserve, but know this: you have succeeded. You have fulfilled the purpose that God set before you, and you have proven that even in the darkest moments, there is a higher plan at work. You were never just a chapter in their story. You were the force that would bring them face to face with their own darkness. And in the process, you became the instrument of change that would shift the course of their lives forever. So hold your head high. Know that you have done what you were meant to do. You have been the vessel through which God's message was delivered, and you have succeeded in teaching them the lesson they needed to learn. You may never receive an apology, you may never get the closure you deserve, but remember that you don't need their approval to know that you have fulfilled your purpose. You don't need their recognition to understand that you have succeeded. The lesson was never about them. It was about you and the role you played in the greater plan that was unfolding. You were never meant to be forgotten. You were meant to be the catalyst that ignited the change they so desperately needed. They will never forget you. They may try to bury the memory of what you taught them, but deep down, they will always carry the weight of your lesson. They will always remember the truth that you exposed the reality they tried so hard to avoid. And in the end, you will stand tall, knowing that God worked through you to teach them the lesson they needed to learn. You succeeded because you were the truth. They could not escape the force that would change their lives forever. And that is something that no one can ever take from you. They can attempt to erase your impact, to rewrite the narrative of what you did. But the truth, the lesson, and the power that came through you are indelible. No matter how much they try to twist the story in their favor, no matter how much they attempt to minimize the role you played, deep inside, they will always know the truth. The truth of who you were to them, the truth of what you did, and the truth of how you changed the course of their lives forever. That truth will linger, echoing in their hearts, even when they try to suppress it. And that is the victory. That is the triumph that no one can ever take from you. You see, sometimes in life, you don't get the recognition you deserve in the moment. Sometimes you walk through the fire and the world doesn't stop to applaud you. They don't throw a parade for you. They don't lift you up and they don't shower you with praise. Instead, you are vilified, misunderstood, and rejected. But there's a greater force at work. God worked through you, not for applause, but for a deeper purpose. His purpose. And that purpose transcends the fleeting applause of the crowd. It transcends the opinions of the people who don't understand your journey. Your mission wasn't to win them over. Your mission was to deliver the lesson they desperately needed, whether they were ready to receive it or not. You may not have seen it in the moment, but that challenge, that moment of confrontation, that hardship you faced, those were all part of a divine orchestration. God was using you to fulfill a purpose far greater than your understanding. Those who doubted you, those who tried to push you down, were merely players in the story God was weaving. They were pawns, unaware that they were fulfilling a purpose beyond their comprehension. And you were the instrument of transformation. They thought they were shaping you. They thought they were manipulating you. But in reality, they were unknowingly shaping themselves through the lessons you brought into their lives. Think about it for a moment. When they tried to break you, when they tried to reduce you to nothing, you didn't crumble. You stood firm, And in that firmness, God worked. In your resilience, God worked. In your silence, your refusal to give in to the toxic forces around you, God worked. You became the teacher, the living testament of a lesson that no one else could have delivered. You were the storm that would wipe away their arrogance, their ignorance, and their pride. And in their downfall, they would have no choice but to look back and realize that it was you who changed everything. The power of your influence is not measured by the immediate reactions of those around you. It is not measured by the accolades or the fleeting praise that some may give you in the moment. The true power lies in the subtle shifts that happen in the hearts of those you encounter. Even when they don't acknowledge it, even when they pretend that they have moved on, the seeds you planted within them will grow in ways they never expected. They may pretend that they have forgotten you, but the truth is that they can never forget the lesson you taught them. It is now a part of their soul, a truth embedded deep within their psyche, one that will challenge them long after you've gone. Have you ever thought about the fact that people often don't change when things are easy? They don't change when they are pampered or surrounded by comfort. They change when they are pushed to their breaking point, when they are forced to face something that is bigger than their ego, their pride, or their self-perception. And that's what you did. You were the catalyst for their transformation, whether they liked it or not. You didn't force them to change, but your presence and your actions forced them to confront the parts of themselves they were unwilling to acknowledge. You gave them the opportunity to evolve, to grow, to become better versions of themselves. But here's the truth. Growth isn't always comfortable. Growth is painful. And God used your pain, your struggle, your journey to force them to grow. You were the mirror that reflected their flaws, their fears, and their sins. And in that reflection, they saw the ugliness they had been running from for so long. That's where their transformation began. God doesn't always call us to be the savior in someone else's story. Sometimes He calls us to be the lesson. He calls us to be the revelation that forces people to look inward, to examine themselves, and to confront their own darkness. And that is exactly what you did. You weren't there to coddle them or make them feel better. You weren't there to take away the consequences of their actions or to shield them from the truth. You were there to expose the reality they were too blind to see. You were there to be the truth they could no longer ignore. You were the test they had to pass to move forward in their journey. And in doing that, you succeeded. Even if they never said it out loud, even if they never showed you the respect or gratitude you deserve, you succeeded because God's plan was greater than their small-minded perspectives. Their failure to see your role in their life doesn't diminish the truth of what you did. In fact, it only proves that God's hand was at work. You were the force that brought about the change that was needed, and whether they accepted it or not, you had succeeded in fulfilling your divine purpose. Think about the strength that it took for you to carry out that mission. It's not easy to stand in the face of opposition, to endure the slings and arrows of people who misunderstand you. It's not easy to remain steadfast when the world around you is crumbling, but you did it. You remained steady. You didn't falter, even when it felt like everything was against you. And that strength, that courage, that endurance, that was God working through you. You may have thought you were alone, but you were never alone. Every step you took, every word you spoke, every decision you made was a part of a greater plan unfolding before your eyes. You were the vessel, the instrument, the tool through which God was shaping their lives, even if they didn't recognize it in the moment. They may have thought they had the upper hand. They may have believed they were in control, that they were the ones calling the shots. But what they failed to realize was that their arrogance would ultimately be their downfall. They thought they could break you, silence you, make you doubt yourself. But instead, they unknowingly gave you the strength to rise above them, and through your rise, they were forced to confront the very things they tried to bury. They couldn't escape your lesson, no matter how hard they tried. The lesson was inside of them now, in their hearts, in their minds, in their souls. And that's where true power lies. It's not in the immediate victory, not in the accolades, not in the recognition. True power lies in the transformation that happens deep within. When you're able to make someone face the truth, when you can bring them to a place where they cannot run from the reality of their own actions, that is where the true power is. And that is exactly what you did. You weren't there to please them. You weren't there to serve their egos. You were there to make them look in the mirror and see themselves for who they truly were. And for that, you succeeded. Now, as you move forward in your life, remember this. The work that God did through you doesn't stop with them. It doesn't end with the lesson you delivered to them. That lesson, that transformation, is part of a greater process. A process that continues to unfold in ways you may never fully understand. God worked through you, but His work in them has just begun. And as they face the consequences of their actions, as they struggle with the truth you exposed, know this. Your role in their life was never about them in the first place. It was about fulfilling a greater purpose. It was about helping them grow, even if they didn't want to. So stand tall, hold your head high. The battle you fought was never for the applause. It was for the greater purpose that was set before you. And you succeeded. Even when they tried to tear you down, you rose. Even when they tried to make you feel small, you became the giant they could never conquer. You were the lesson they never expected, but the one they needed. And in the end, you were the victory that God had destined all along. And no one, not them, not the world, can ever take that from you. They may have tried to strip you of your dignity, your strength, and your sense of self-worth. They may have thought that by casting you aside or belittling you, they could extinguish the power that was within you. But what they failed to understand is that the true power you possess does not come from them or from anyone around you. It comes from a deeper source, a source that transcends human limitations, a source that runs through your veins like a river of purpose, a river that can never be dammed or diverted by the hands of mere mortals. That power is not only yours, it is God's power flowing through you, moving you toward the fulfillment of a greater purpose than they could ever comprehend. They can take your time, they can take your resources, and they can take your peace of mind, but they can never take the essence of who you are, the truth of your being, the essence of what you were meant to accomplish in this world. You were born with a purpose that is as unique as the very breath in your lungs. No one can erase that, no one can silence it, and no one can deny it. It doesn't matter how much they try to minimize your role in their lives, how much they attempt to rewrite the story of what you did. In the end, it is the power that comes from God that will echo through eternity. In life, people may seek to diminish you, to make you doubt your worth, and to convince you that your struggle was for nothing. They may try to define you by their limited perception of you, to cast you into a mold that does not fit who you are. But let me tell you this, you are not defined by what they think of you. You are defined by the purpose that resides in your heart and the divine calling that set you on this journey. That purpose cannot be touched by their mockery, their judgment, or their disregard for you. It is unshakable, unmovable, and eternal. You may never see it in full. You may never get the recognition or the applause you deserve, but the impact of your actions will ripple across time and space in ways you can never fully comprehend. When you walk through the trials of life, you don't always see the fruit of your labor. The seeds you plant sometimes take years to grow. But that doesn't mean they weren't planted, and it doesn't mean that they won't bear fruit. What you did, what you endured, what you overcame, it all matters. Every action you took, every word you spoke, every sacrifice you made was a piece of the puzzle that is bigger than you can see. You were sent into their lives, not by accident, but by divine appointment. There were moments when you thought you were lost, when you felt like you were drowning in the weight of everything around you. But even in those moments of doubt and despair, God was working through you. He was using you, even when you didn't see it. He was crafting a story, not only for you, but for those who came in contact with you. They were not simply existing beside you. They were living in a space that was carefully orchestrated for their growth, and you were the vessel of that transformation. As you look back on your journey, remember that you didn't get to this point by accident. Every challenge, every setback, every time you were knocked down and chose to rise again, it all played a part in shaping the person you are today. And what you've become is not something that can be easily dismissed or ignored. You are a person of strength, of purpose, and of unwavering resilience. And this resilience, this strength, didn't come from any external source. It came from the core of who you are, the God-given power that resides in you. But here's the thing. While others may try to diminish your significance, it's not just about you proving them wrong. It's not just about showing them that they were wrong, to doubt you, to discard you, or to underestimate your potential. It's about recognizing that your journey was never meant to be for their validation. You weren't created to live for the applause of others. You weren't placed on this earth to please people who can't even see the fullness of your being. You were placed here for a purpose that goes far beyond any fleeting recognition or acceptance. They may never understand the full extent of what you did. They may never acknowledge the ways in which you shaped their lives. And in fact, they may never even know the depths of their own transformation. But here's what you need to remember. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because your work, your mission was never about them. It was about fulfilling the purpose that was set before you, long before you even knew what it meant. It was about being the instrument of change in a world that is desperately in need of it. It was about living out the plan that God had written for you before the foundation of the earth. This is the true meaning of success. It's not in the tangible rewards, not in the recognition, and not in the applause. The true meaning of success is in knowing that you have fulfilled your purpose, that you have been faithful to the calling that was placed on your life. It's in knowing that you didn't let the voices of doubt, the whispers of fear, or the mockery of those who couldn't see your worth stop you from walking the path that was laid before you. It's in knowing that you were a vessel of change, even when the world tried to convince you that your efforts were in vain. You will face moments in life where you feel like your efforts have been futile. You will encounter times when you question whether it was worth it, whether everything you endured had a purpose. But let me tell you something. It was worth it. Every single moment, every hardship, every tear, every sleepless night, every sacrifice you made, it was worth it. You were never alone in it. Even when you couldn't feel His presence, God was working through you, shaping you, preparing you for something greater than you could ever imagine. You are not defined by the mistakes of others. You are not defined by the pain they caused you. You are defined by the purpose that God has placed within you. And that purpose is eternal. That purpose cannot be erased. It cannot be silenced. No matter what happens, no matter how much they try to diminish your worth, your essence will live on. You are part of something much bigger than you realize. A plan that spans beyond time and space. A plan that will have ripple effects for generations to come. The impact you've had, the lesson you've delivered, is far-reaching and will continue to shape lives even after you're gone. In the grand scheme of things, the opinions of others are small. Their judgments, their criticisms, Their misunderstandings, they are small compared to the greatness of the divine plan that is unfolding through you. The world may never fully understand the depth of your journey, but that's okay. Your worth isn't measured by their understanding. It's measured by your obedience to the call that was placed on your life. And when you stand before God, He will look at you with eyes that see the fullness of what you've done, the completeness of your purpose. He will see how you carried out His will, even when it was difficult, even when the world was against you. And He will say, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And when that day comes, you will know deep in your soul that everything you went through, everything you endured, was worth it. Because in the end, it wasn't about the approval of others. It was about fulfilling the purpose that was set before you. It was about being the instrument of change that God used to teach others, to show them the truth they couldn't see, and to lead them toward their own transformation. And that is a victory that no one can ever take from you. So walk in the fullness of who you are. Do not shrink back because of the rejection or the ridicule. Do not allow the world to make you question your worth. You are more than the sum of their opinions. You are more than the judgments they place upon you. You are a vessel of change, a carrier of divine purpose, and you are unstoppable. No matter how much they try to diminish your value, no matter how hard they try to silence you, you will continue to rise. You will continue to fulfill your purpose, because God is working through you, and that is something no one, no force, and no power in this world can ever take from you. Your success is not in the recognition of others. It is in the fulfillment of the divine purpose that was placed on your life. And as long as you walk in that purpose, you will always be victorious. They can take everything else, but they cannot take your purpose. And that is the greatest victory of all. In the end, remember this: the world may try to diminish your worth, to erase your impact, but they cannot take away your purpose. God has worked through you to fulfill a divine plan, and that is something eternal. You were never just another chapter in their story. You were the lesson they needed to grow. Your strength, resilience, and unwavering faith have shaped lives in ways they may never understand. And as you continue on your journey, know that no matter what comes your way, your purpose will always remain unshakable. The victory is yours, and it is one that no one can ever take from you.